Good day, SA wine lovers, and welcome to the SaveSAwine live stream. It's Wednesday night, and tomorrow is a Heritage Day, the 24th of September, where we actually are showing off our South African heritage by, inviting our friends, especially if you're overseas, to come enjoy the day with us. And show them the South African lifestyle, showing them a great South African wine. And yes, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But let's start off with our 1660 campaign. We are featuring 60 producers in 60 days. And tonight's featured producer is Mullineux Wine. Mullineux Wine is a Swartland based family business. They are concentrating on old wines and white wine. As people know, the Swartland is blessed with an abundance of old wine Chenin, and this is the backbone of the Mullineux wine white blend. The winemaker in the picture here is Andrea Mullineux, and Andrea as well developed a passion for wine at the family dinner table, and she is from the United States. She studied viticulture and oenology at UC Davis and completed a handful of harvests in the Napa Valley. She also worked in Stellenbosch and then at the famous Chateauneuf-du-Pape in the south of France, close to the lovely city of Avignon. And Andrea's love for South African wine, and of course, Chris Mullineux brought her back to South Africa, where they learned that their compatibility extended into the vineyards and the cellar. And in 2014, Andrea was invited to join the Cape Winemakers Guild, and in 2016, she was awarded the International Winemaker of the Year by Wine Enthusiasts. So, well done to Andrea, and it's time that we really support wineries like these. So if you can go and support Mullineux wines, the wines are fantastic. It's fantastic if you actually could purchase one of these wines. Also, please share these posts about this winery on your Facebook page and your social media, wherever. Use the hashtag 1660, use the hashtag SaveSAwine, and use the hashtag DrinkSouthAfrican. Also great if you could go to our website. It's SaveSAwine.co.za, and our producer calendar is also on the website. It's SaveSAwine.co.za/1660, and that will give you an idea of which producers are actually featured when. And if you could also please go to our Instagram and leave a comment, that would be very, very helpful. Our Instagram is instagram.com/SaveSAwine.co.za. Then back to the day tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 24th of September. And on the 24th of September every year, Wine.co.za encourages every South African around the world to open up a bottle of South African wine with new friends and to let them taste some of our sunshine. And they've got a campaign called Wine hashtag Taste Sunshine, and it's on their website on wine.co.za/Taste Sunshine. So invite friends tomorrow. Taste Sunshine. There's also a Facebook event, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow. But it'd be great if you guys could invite your friends, show them your South African friends, drink a bottle of South African wine together. If you're overseas, invite some of your overseas buddies and teach them more about our heritage and about what South Africa is about. It's also a public holiday in South Africa tomorrow, so enjoy it. It's also known as National Braai Day. So the other thing that we really need to encourage people is to visit the winelands. I've made a video called COVID-19, a warning and a wake-up call to the winelands. As people that are following the news are aware, COVID cases are spiking in Europe. new lockdown regulations in France. In Paris was just announced today. UK yesterday went to level 4, and the chances of European tourists flocking to our wine lands are very much slim to none. So we believe that our wineland should be focusing on local tourism, and we've created a space on our page, bit.ly/visit winelands, where people can come and list their winelands business or their experience. It's free, and please come visit your winelands. Come add your winelands experience there. If you're in the winelands tomorrow, this weekend, it's great. It's a long weekend, great time to visit the winelands. If you haven't booked your Christmas holiday yet, book your Christmas holiday in the winelands. It's the right thing to do. Then, very big thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor for tonight's live stream is the Fishwives Club. The Fishwives Club Boutique Winery are giving away 24 of their new production line cans, and you could be the first person to win any of these. It's going to be one lucky winner of 24 cans. All you need to do is add your email address to fishwivesclubcangiveaway.gr8.com. That's Fishwives Club cangiveaway.gr8.com, and you can be a winner. The link is also in the description. So, just back to exposure and getting yourself ready for summer. A great way to get more exposure for your wine, your restaurant, your accommodation, your winelands experience, or your winelands business is to use one of our premium service offerings. We realize that times are tough for winelands businesses, and to give you a helping hand, we've decided to give away a 500 Rand credit to you as a gift to kickstart your promotion for summer. To claim yours, go to visitthewinelands@gmail.com. Email us details about your business and claim your 500 Rand credit, which you can use on our media store, and it will help you to actually kickstart your summer promotion. Then our featured podcast of the evening is Colleen Tritter. He's the chairman of Cape Site Specific. Cape Site Specific is a membership group of winemakers, and the members are made up of a collection of small independent producers, together with single family generation winemakers, providing wine from these respective estates and making these wines site specific. To find out more what this means, I'm going to put on the interview I had not long ago with Colleen Tritter, like I said, the chairman of Cape Site Specific. Listen to the podcast, very interesting. Enjoy it, and also support these guys if you can. Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every week for our latest episode. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today, I'm talking to Colleen Tritter. Colleen is the chairman of Cape Site Specific. Hi, Colleen. Welcome to About the Winelands.
Hello, Will. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to chatting to you.
No, it's our pleasure having you here. We'd love to hear a bit more about, what you're doing and stuff. But tell me, Colleen, how did you get involved in the wine industry?
It was actually a little bit by default. I studied, grew up in Robertson, and obviously amongst quite a few wine families and friends. Went to Stellenbosch, studied marketing, and then I went to play rugby in Canada and New Zealand over the course of about 2 years, and came back to South Africa. And my mother was the accountant at Robertson Winery at that stage, so I kind of got familiar with their marketing manager, which was Johan Meisner at that during that time. And when I came back from New Zealand, I thought, well, okay, I could try another stint of going overseas and live a student life, I would say. And I came across Wine.co on their classifieds, and there was a position for a bulk wine company called Wine Trader at that stage. And long story short, I started working for them in September of 2004. And that was basically the introduction for me into the wine business back then.
Wow, interesting. And so you worked at them for how long?
I was with the bulk wine for luckily not too long, probably about 4 months. At that stage in 2000, well, I think it was December 2004, I was approached by Kobus Burger from Rietvallei Wine Estate in Robertson. I knew the family quite well, and they broke away from the Distillers Corporation of Stellenbosch Farmers in those days, 2003. They were part of the Bergkeller portfolio, so they were although they were quite an old brand, were quite new in doing their own marketing, and so I was quite lucky to, at a very young age, start a position of looking after a brand's marketing and sales. So I started with them in February 2005. So that would be the first proper, let's call it proper marketing and sales job in the wine industry.
Oh, interesting. That must have been quite an interesting job. Did you do all of the marketing, exporting, all of those things as well?
Yeah, I worked closely with Kobus, the sixth generation and son. So he was the winemaker and GM, and we started slowly to take over the local market. Our wines were distributed back then by Vinimark, and they had a small portfolio called Wineworks with more smaller boutiquish or estate brands. And slowly but surely got into the export markets with Kobus, starting mainly with the US in 2006. And from then on, the more responsibilities that came onto the table, I took over and started looking after the whole portfolio in the course of a couple of years.
Oh, very interesting. So tell us about Cape Site Specific. What is it, and what is the history of Cape Site Specific?
So I guess the passion for site-specific terroir-driven wines with a sense of place, which kind of encapsulates what Cape Site Specific stands for today, started back then when I worked with a family property and realized the difference between people literally living off the land in their own production rather than just a commercial brand or corporate brand that buys in bulk and has a distribution line and financial backing, and kind of planted the seed for me to say, well, okay, how do we communicate and educate the consumer of what the difference is between call it a estate wine or a site-specific wine compared to a normal commercial brand on the local retailer shelf. Through the years, I started talking to obviously my fellow industry colleagues, and we so often fall for the cliche of who cares about what is an estate wine or what is a single vineyard wine. And I've always said, if we don't care about it as producers, then obviously the consumer don't have to care. And then in 2011, end of 2011, I started my own business. I guess the focus at that stage was to help smaller boutique brands or private producers with their marketing and sales, because quite a few of them don't have the financial means to appoint a full-time marketing and salesperson. And then with the focus on Cape Wine 2018, I started talking to a friend of mine, Willem Pinaar, who's at Hermanus Pietersfontein, and Johan Fourie, who's at Benguela Cove, both coming from the Stel and KWV backgrounds, so coming from a more corporate structure. And everyone was in the need of a collaboration. So I guess that kind of skipped quite a few hoops for me, and I thought, okay, well, maybe we can get a nice group of winemakers together that speaks the same language, has the same philosophy and passion for site-specific wines and terroir-driven wines. So we launched at Cape Wine in 2018. We were about 11 producers back then, and it ranged from across the Western Cape. The important part was it had to be producers who makes wine from specific sites and not blends of different regions or different appellations. So Cape Wine 2018 was kind of the launch pad for us.
Oh, that's very interesting and a great concept. So what are your goals for Cape Wine Specific?
Well, I guess the main thing, I guess, as a foundation is as a collaboration to start working together and support each other in our own businesses, individually, but also as a group. So I've struggled to find an English translation for it, but we are very used to in the Afrikaans sense to, ons gun mekaar niks. you see your neighbor as your competitor, you see the brand next to you as a competitor, and stealing your time in the sun, which is so false, because all of us are in the wine industry competing with other liquor brands, not each other. Yes, there will always be a kind of a competitive edge towards regions or wine styles, etc. But the foundation for us is, as a collective, to work together with people who share the same sentiments, the same mindset, and find that synergy for us. And that was really important. So the first thing was have a group that wants to work together rather than against each other, and then have a local and international kind of footprint and plan. And that was to really educate from top to bottom. None of us has the budget to have huge consumer campaigns, but the feeling is that if we can sit with the right sommeliers, the wine shop owners, top restaurants, good importers in other countries, we need to educate them on what the difference is, and what the difference is in our appellation system in South Africa, because they're the guys that influence the immediate market around them. So we've focused on quite a few events the last couple of years, but the goal is, in the end, to help each other to grow our business and put a limelight on what it means to produce site-specific wines. And not that the Chardonnay from my area is better than yours, but why it's different. And it's a big educational process and platform for all of us.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work. So Cape specific then, how do you actually help how does it benefit your members, and how do you help them, or assist them with getting their wine to market?
Yeah, you're right in saying it's quite a lot of work. Winemakers are not necessarily the best communicators, so it's sometimes quite tough to communicate with them and kind of speed up things. But the important part is, I'm the non-winemaker in the group, obviously being the brainchild behind it, but also from a marketing background. So I look after the daily running of Cape Site Specific, and kind of look for opportunities and soundboard with my members about where we should go, who we should talk to, etc. So the benefit for the member is really to be part of a collective, and it's not just about sharing cost of a standard Cape wine. It's not just sharing the cost of, hey, we've got a table at ProWine, so we can share the cost of being together. It's more important of sharing the knowledge and expertise amongst each other. And obviously, the long-term goal for all of us is to start growing our business together in the export markets, but also locally. To give you a simple example, and I can't elaborate on the names yet, but we're in discussion and kind of in the last phase of working with a new agent for Gauteng, where 7 of our members who's not currently properly represented up there will form part of the South African portfolio. So that is kind of the long-term dream goal, is to form part of portfolios in local and export market agencies. Again, when we travel together, to speak the same language and help each other out. I've been representing the group at quite a few international tastings in the last 2 years, where we select 5 themes from, let's call it Chardonnay, Bordeaux blends, Pinotage, etc. And each member has a wine in a flight. But it's literally just whether I stand there with the winemaker and we talk about the collective, we all stand there with the same mindset and same support system. So the benefit, I would say, for the members are to be a part of something. It's if you've ever played team sports, it's always that's kind of, I belong to something and someone, and that's really, I guess, the more emotional part about it. But yeah, the benefit is really just to help each other in growing our business and look for opportunities where, if someone approaches me for a really good quality Chenin Blanc, but I don't have it, I'd rather pass it on to one of our members and say, hey, Donnie or Ati, do you have something for this guy, because I don't, rather than trying to do it ourselves, as we've seen so many times in the past.
So tell me, Colleen, if somebody's sitting there, a wine producer, and is thinking this is a great idea, and are you guys open to accept more members? And if people are interested, how do they get hold of you? How did they approach you to become part of it? And what are the criteria?
So, as I said, initially we were a group of friends mainly, and people who knew each other, and obviously looked for someone that fits the mold of what we stand for. If you go into the website www.capesitespecific.co.za, you can read more about the kind of the criteria of what CSS stands for and constitutes, which is mainly a single vineyard wine, estate classified wine, or board specific. So, for instance, you can't have wine of origin Stellenbosch, but your grapes come from the Paardeberg and the Bottleray area. It has to be only that smallest ward denomination. Are we open to accept new members? We're never closed. There's so many producers who are similar to what our members do, but the reality also is that once the group becomes too big, it becomes quite difficult to manage. And so we're very careful of growing too quickly and too big, that the members start feeling that I'm not really getting the value for what I signed up for in the beginning. And also not to become too top heavy in certain regions, and less in others. So we are definitely open to talk to producers, but we have quite a open discussion with our members to say, look, we've been approached by X producer. Do we think they can add value, or do we think they fit the mold for what we stand for? And then we're obviously open for discussion. But we currently sit with 14 members, so it's quite a really nice group of producers, like I said, from across the Western Cape. There's obviously certain regions that we currently don't represent, but it's finding that right fit and synergy. So yes, all the details are on the website, so you can visit there and get in contact with me as well.
So, for interest's sake, are you guys a voluntary association? How are you organized? Are you an NPO or a company?
Well, as most things starts very slowly, we probably started out as an NPO. There's a membership fee, and the membership fee is mainly just to, I guess, keep members interested, rather than, the sentiment was always, if people don't pay for something, they don't want to get involved, they won't be committed enough. So we've got a very basic membership fee model, which is not too expensive, and I'll share that with guys that get in contact with me. But we obviously then want to basically look after each other's funds. So it's a pay-to-play scenario where we do events and we share the cost. And yeah, for us, it's really about growing the business. And with that, I started a company, Cape Site Specific Pty Limited, last year. So I registered it. And the main purpose for that is to start looking at tradability in the future. So we've got a liquor license. So we are able to trade and actually become a vendor of, for argument's sake, Checkers or Macro or any group. So we can actually trade. And that's really important, because you want to streamline the whole business as well. Rather than dealing with 14 different individuals, you now deal with one company, and they all fall under the umbrella of Cape Site Specific. So we are a listed, well, not listed, but an established company, and that is really just to look at any business opportunities in the future where we can, as a collective, start trading with agents or companies.
Would you look would you set up something for the export market as well as an agent?
Yes, yeah. So that's the main goal is to kind of start collaborating in that way as well, and co-load and co-ship stuff to the, once we form part of the same agencies and importers on the other side, that would be a big goal for us in a way to streamline that operation, and also on a local market basis as well.
Okay. So, Colleen, it sounds to me like you've done a lot of work in the industry in setting up a distribution channel, talking to, buyers, people in the industry. But what about customer awareness? How do you guys go about, because ultimately the customer has to know that the bottle of wine that they're drinking are Cape Site specific and what it means. How do you raise that customer awareness?
So unfortunately, with the second year plan, which was 2020, COVID derailed quite a bit of our let's call it consumer-driven events. But so each brand individually has their own brand plan. They've got their own way of communicating to their consumer. But with that, when we do collective events, obviously then we want each producer to start talking to their database and their customer base. We've done a consumer event up in Johannesburg last year with the Stellenbosch University alumni. The plan was this year to do a Cape Town, Durban and Joburg event. and invite trade and consumers. So that's kind of the first avenue. The second is obviously to use our social media platforms and whatever we can to post. And I created some videos earlier during COVID when people were still keen on watching, all these podcast videos and virtual tastings, etc. But like I said earlier, for us, the consumer connection and education will start once we can actually actively engage with them. For us, it really is important to start talking to the influencers at the top, which would be your restaurant owners, your sommeliers, your wine shop owners, because again, they're the guys that the consumer comes to for advice, and they're the influencer that we need on our side to say, hey, I know you're like Chardonnay, why don't you try this from X producer, from this in the small single vineyard, etc., and kind of do it that way. So the consumer awareness is kind of phase, I guess I could call it phase 2, but it is very important to us because in the end, the consumer needs to understand what the difference is, like I said earlier, between the different brands and appellations and I guess production ways.
I think my question is, if I'm a consumer, I'm standing in buying a bottle of wine, and I want to know if it's Cape specific. Also, is the wine branded somehow? Is there a label on it? If not, is there something that's going to happen in the future? How are you guys looking at branding?
Okay, so yeah, I probably misunderstood your question in the beginning.
Yes, no, it's fine because it's all part of it, right? So it's very interesting to me.
Well, Andre Morgenthal and I have had quite a few meetings as well, because the Old Vine Project has done amazing work to put an emphasis on what that means and kind of their philosophy and drive behind protecting and looking after old vineyards. And they've got a beautiful sticker and kind of classification on their bottles. It's definitely in a plan in the future. I think from a producer's point, people are sometimes very hesitant to just put anything on their bottle. Some guys, even though they enter competitions, don't even put their gold medals or whatever on their bottles. But yes, from a I guess awareness and standout point, it's definitely something we want to bring into each producer's packaging and kind of look and feel. Whether that would be a neck label or on the back label a little logo, something like that. It's definitely in the future. But we also have to be, I guess, cognizant of the fact that each producer has their own, I guess, emotion and drive behind why their packaging looks the way it looks, and also spatially what can fit into their back label or front label or bottle. But yes, it's in the pipeline, but nothing's confirmed as yet.
So if customers are interested in ordering wines at the moment, can they order from Cape Specific, or they order from the producer, and how do they order these wines?
Yes, so we've worked with a company who's busy building our wine shop, which I'm hoping to have live in the next week. You'll be able then to access it through the Cape Site Specific website, and there will be a wine shop with all the wines from each producer that you can purchase. And then what we also want to do in the future is to kind of pre-select mixed cases and theme cases around the different varieties and wine styles. So then you can buy 6 Chardonnays from 6 different producers and kind of taste through the lineup and see the difference, same with other varieties. So we want to then offer mixed cases and kind of educational cases in the future as well. The wines are currently listed very, I guess, informally on the website currently. So for those who want to go on, they can have a look. But the wine shop will hopefully be launching the next week, and then people can actually purchase the wines as well.
Okay, cool, awesome. I mean, you'll be talking about the lockdown, and of course, this has such a big effect on all of us and our businesses. And the coronavirus has forced all of us to rethink our business models. Do you guys have any changes or new ideas in mind?
Yes. Look, it's been, I said to my colleagues in the industry, even though COVID has kind of sped up the process of this, I've always felt that each business has to kind of take a step back and look at, their agents around the world, also locally, and see if it's still quite a good fit. If I can use the example, it's pointless for me to have an agent, for argument's sake, in the UK who I started working with in the 90s, and they've moved to become more retail orientated, yet my brand is a lot more on-trade focused, which means there's the company, or the synergy has basically disappeared, because, you know, it doesn't help that I'm with a guy who supports retail, but I want to be in restaurants. And COVID has definitely given us the opportunity to evaluate and reevaluate our business model as well in that way. And it's not about, I mean, we've built up relationships with these guys, and for the most part, a lot of businesses just trickled over every year, where COVID has given us the opportunity to sit back and say, well, look, you know, maybe it's time to look at a different agent. Maybe it's time to look at a different route to market, this different distribution channel, and take this time that everything's kind of in limbo and on pause to do that, and you know, plan for the future. The fact that everything is basically driven towards online sales, and we've seen a huge boom in that. I think everyone's well aware of the fact that people waited so long for their wine deliveries after that first opening of the market in June. But you know, we learned from that, and I think the South African consumer in the future will be much more comfortable to order wines directly from the producer, and take the lead on what people say is good or not good, because I think that's why online sales have struggled in the past, is people want to buy, especially wine, they want to buy something they actually know. People are not willing to risk, you know, 600 or 1,000 rand a case on wine that they don't actually know. And so the online space is definitely going to be an exciting one for the future to watch. And I think it will definitely have changed the consumer's behavior. And with that, we all have seen the fact that if your business was geared towards wine tourism, and unfortunately, so many of the producers are very focused on cellar door activity and you know, hosting people on the properties. What's the alternative, and how can we engage with that part as well? So the plan is definitely to be a lot more open and free for consumers to engage with us on a digital platform, on an online platform, and basically take it into their homes. I think in the future, maybe people will be very happy to, you know, host the winemakers at their homes and do more private or smaller group tastings rather than huge events, because huge events, I think, will be, you know, nullified for quite some time. But in business sense, well, I think the most important part is that this time has given us the opportunity to really look what works, what doesn't work, and how we can change that.
Well, it's very interesting to me. I mean, you're an expert in marketing, and I mean, you're right. I think direct to consumer is going to be a huge factor in South Africa for all products, not just wine. But then again, like you said, you know, you guys are focused on the restaurant industry, and you want to get your wine through that channel. So my question is, do you think there's I haven't heard anybody talking about it, but maybe, you know, the internet is, what we've learned from this is that the internet is basically cutting out the middleman. And I think that's why it's important that you need to always, as a business, be talking to the consumer anyway, whether he's buying directly from you or not. But do you see a business platform, for instance, an online platform for restaurants, or even for international buyers, where, you know, currently it's such a middleman business, where international, say, supermarkets or whoever stocks wine shops will actually buy directly from the producers, order online instead of through an agency business?
Yeah, you see, that's almost a business conversation on its own.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, there's a lot of traditional channels and a way of doing business. You know, for instance, recently there's huge articles, or quite a few articles about the US market and the 3-tier system, which, you know, dates back to whenever. And why does there have to be three tiers in the system? And the same with the UK. I know quite a few UK supermarkets have started to trade directly with producers rather than working through importers, so they import their own product. But that's kind of, let's call it on the mass market side, or the bigger volume production side. From a I guess, ease of business space, we've seen in locally the last 5 or 7 years the introduction of redistributors. So the restaurant buys everything from his Coca-Cola to his beer and wine from one redistributor, because then he looks after one account. which obviously then put the let's call it the historical agent / distributor in quite a difficult spot, because they can't now supply the restaurant direct, because these guys want to buy, from the redistributor. So there's already been quite a few changes recently regarding that. It's also up to the restaurateur, I guess, and the wine shop owner, in terms of where does the relationship lie? Does the relationship lie with the producer or with the representative coming, past every week or every second week? And that's something that this industry, I think, sometimes undervalues, is relationships in a big way. We feel that everyone's replaceable, but I think the relationships that representatives build up with their clients is invaluable. And you can't always replace that, because there's always a human element to it. As much as we don't want to say, some people get along with each other and some people don't. So, and that's the human factor. So, so the online platform, yes, there's definitely a possibility. I am just not sure if most restaurants would, or not even just restaurants, but if businesses would look at that, because they've already kind of steered away from worrying about 10 different invoices, to working with someone that supplies me with everything on one invoice. So yeah, it's kind of an admin thing, but also, like I said, the relationship is going to be the driver in terms of where the client gets the product from.
Well, it's interesting what you're saying, but I was just thinking while you are talking, another factor that might be turning this whole thing on its head. All the restaurants and stuff are having serious problems at the moment in terms of, they've got no income. So, I think anybody that steps up with a distribution system that can provide terms or finance might be able to take a big chunk of the market. Have you guys thought about anything in that direction? I know, I hear what you're saying about relationships and stuff like that, and sure, it's important. But ultimately, a business model that gives the guys access and also provides terms to them would be very attractive to any restaurant owner.
Yeah, look, at this stage, it's such a sad environment that we live in, because as you would have seen in the news and social media and everywhere, restaurants can't survive just on food sales. No. Liquor and beverages are such a big part of their business, and also from a customer point of view, it's when you meet friends out for dinner, or you go with your family or partners, and that's been taken away, which also kind of blocks people from, well, I'm not going to dinner for tomorrow night and have a glass of water or Coke Light or whatever that might be. So unfortunately, that space is in such a difficult one at the moment, because the on-trade is in this, I guess, fighting within themselves as well, in a way that, am I going to stay open? Is it worth opening or not? And we are partners in a big way, I guess, in normal times, where wine producers, a lot of wine producers are really dependent on them. But again, it also showed us in this way that maybe from a restaurant point and from a producer point, that we should look at opportunities to also be able to survive without each other, but when you can, support each other where it's possible. If I'm very honest with you at this stage, talking to my colleagues in the industry and people who, like I said, literally has no outside funding, no guys sitting in London or in Johannesburg funding the business, everyone is really just up there for survival at the moment and looking after their own space. So it's very, I guess, sometimes very difficult to look at other opportunities when you're really just fighting for survival by yourself. And I'm talking about the restaurateur as much as I'm talking about the producer. I think everyone is just really looking for ways to be able to get through this at this stage.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, right, for anybody that can actually put cash into this distribution system might be able to get a big chunk of business. But anyway, that's a discussion, like you said, for another day. Cool.
Just to say that the problem is that there is no distribution channel at the moment, because we're not allowed to sell anything. So if it was possible to sell wine, I'm sure there's going to be. Yeah, I mean, what they've done in Canada was even though it's liquor board run, they allowed restaurants to sell wine as if they were a wine shop. Now, can you imagine if that was possible, to have an on and off consumption license for a restaurant to say, I've had dinner, enjoyed that bottle of wine. Can you give me a case to take home? That system is not allowed here in South Africa for the most part. So yes, to look at opportunities to do that will be wonderful, but there's no money to put in anything because you can't trade at any stage. So that's a frustrating part for everyone.
Do you think regulations will change after this whole palaver ends? Is there a possibility?
Sure. I would like to say yes. I would like to say that, maybe some liquor license terms could be a bit more lenient. But as we've seen, I guess I would rather not venture into political discussions at this stage. But it will be very difficult to change that. I mean, I guess it's the same as in America, where people have been fighting for lowering the drinking age from 21 to 18 or 19. It's never going to happen. And we can only hope that with what we've learned the last 6 months, that yes, the liquor boards, etc., and provincial governments will look at it and say, well, how can we support the smaller business to, like I said earlier, allow the guy to say, you are now allowed to have an on and off consumption license, but with these trading terms trading times, and support each other in that way, because it's an extra income stream for that restaurant and an on-trade place, which might be feasible in the future.
Interesting. Colleen, what is the most important thing that you've learned from your wine journey?
Look, I can probably give quite a few examples, but the one that always comes to mind is the wine industry is not an overnight business. People who came into the industry years ago and from different walks of life or different industries, you can't press a button and suddenly have a successful wine business. It just doesn't happen like that. When you look at the really successful brands like Kanonkop, with for me is probably in the top of what I would say represents South Africa and success from a family operation. But there's quite a few examples like that. It took them years, and it takes everyone years to get that credibility and I guess perceptual value. It doesn't happen overnight. And sadly, a lot of people think it's, again, if I could use a restaurant example, how difficult is it to flip a burger and make a pizza, until you open a place and see what happens behind the doors of running cost and just the effort and money capital that you have to put into it. So yes, the one thing that I've learned very quickly was it's not an overnight business. It's not something that you just turn around in a couple of months. It takes years to be successful.
It's amazing that you mentioned that, because I spoke to Kanonkop the other day and they said exactly the same thing. And consistency, right, is the key.
Yeah.
They managed actually
Yeah.
to have that consistent Kanonkop, let's put it, ethos in their wine, going through
Yes.
all the winemakers, the 3 winemakers they've had so far. And they've, so if you drink a bottle of Kanonkop today, and you had one in the 80s, it would be the same bottle, it would be more or less the same wine.
Yeah.
Which is also the secret of the big French producers, right? Of the Bordeaux wines, is consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the fact that they've done it for so long. Sadly, South Africa, even though we are the oldest New World country, and again, in those isolation years and back then, there was such great things happening in the industry, and you can listen to the stories of the Kanonkops, and Oevergouw was one of our members who bottled the first Merlot in early 80s and the first Bordeaux blended Triacorda. The Thelimas, who started in the mid-80s, late 80s, who's now again 30 plus years old, and then you sit with guys who've learned from the older generations, and kind of doing it themselves now and learning from that. So yes, there's a reason why Bordeaux wines and Burgundy wines are so sought after, and again, there will always be people that kind of wants to pull them down and say the quality is not there anymore, etc., and it's become commercial. But if you look at the facts, it will take us, quite a few producers, quite a few years to sell wine at a 500 or 1,000 euros a bottle. But I'm sure we'll get there.
I'm sure we'll get there, maybe in your lifetime, yes. Can you give us your very own wine quote?
Yeah. So when you send me the questions, I thought about it, and I could probably sit. I recently read Robert Mondavi's book that I bought on my trip there last year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many great things he said in that book, and I can't even remember all of it. So I would rather not venture into a fancy, wine is sun in the glass or anything romantic like that. For me, it's more a question of we need to enjoy wine for what it is. It doesn't have to be snobbish or idealized. It can be a daily beverage which we should enjoy, and that's something I have always communicated in the last 15, 16 years working in the industry to consumers. It's just enjoy wine. Forget about what you have to smell, what you have to taste. Wine is something to be enjoyed every day, and we still need to create that culture in South Africa that wine is not just a Sunday afternoon glass of wine or a dinner drink. It's something that you can enjoy on a daily basis, obviously in a responsible way, to tease and seize it. So yeah, for me, it's really about make wine a bit more acceptable to everyone, and not something that I'm scared of because I'm worried someone's going to ask me, what I'm smelling or what I'm tasting. There's no such thing as a bad wine because it might be enjoyed by someone else. And on that point, we've got to be very thankful for the, let's call it the sweeter and sweeter white and red wines that we see in the market, because that's the introduction for most young people into the wine market, and be thankful for it. If I could say one quote, it would be what Cape Side Specific uses, and that's an African proverb, which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's been kind of our ethos in the last 2 years, is that kind of teamwork and working together to enhance and better everyone in the future, or for the future.
I like that. Kulain, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and it's been very interesting. If people are sitting there, listeners, and they want to get hold of you, or of Cape Side Specific, how do they get hold of you?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's really great to have this platform to also inform people a bit about what we do and what we stand for. And if they want to get in contact with me, they can email to info@capesidespecific.co.za, or you can visit the website at capesidespecific.co.za, and all the details are also on the website. And then on Instagram and Twitter, it's just Cape Side Specific. So follow us, and hopefully we can, carry the conversation forward and keep educating people in a very informative way, but also a very important way. Again, it comes down to us understanding why certain wines taste different to others, and comes back to the whole story of sense of place and sense of belonging.
Kulain, thank you very, very much. We'll put all the links in the description, and we all appreciate your time. Thank you for spending the time with us.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the listeners. I look forward to receiving some comments from everyone, but wonderful to chat to you, and hopefully we can catch up sometime soon.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description.